Alright, so I've been meaning to make one of these videos for quite some time now, but I haven't really had the time or energy to make one. I figured it would be a Type Me video, but I'm not going to be responding to a question or anything. I more so just intend to ramble about stuff. The intent for me is not so much actually to type myself. I mean, I am very much interested in, you know, what people have to say, what their read is. That sort of stuff always interests me. But this is really more for me just to practice being, first of all, to practice making videos like these, because I have some interest in it. But also, I like analyzing my own body language, and you know, when you record something, you can always go back and you can tweak things about the way you present yourself that you're dissatisfied with. Like right now, dissatisfied, the way I said it was sort of yeah, stuff like that you can improve. So yeah, I mean, I am very much interested in, you know, what kind of a read people get from this video, but it's more so for, you know, for myself, as everything I do is primarily for myself. But yeah, anyhow, so I've been thinking quite a lot about introversion and extroversion lately, because, well, so first of all, I type myself as an INFJ right now, but originally I typed as an INTP because I always score as an INTP on all personality tests, and the sort of, if you go by, you know, the general type descriptions you find online, INTP is by far the best fit. So that's what I went at first, until, you know, I developed an understanding that, you know, to me was more coherent, and which I ended up retyping myself as an INFJ according to. But, you know, throughout all of this time, ENTP has sort of been the most consistent typing, because it was the consensus on my first Type Me post, and it's been re-emerging, you know, every once in a while that people think I'm an ENTP. It's certainly happened now recently again, and yeah, there's always someone who thinks I'm an ENTP, so it's the most consistent in that regard. Otherwise, I think like the type I've gotten the most from other people is ISTP, but I never got ISTP in the beginning, as an example. Like, people started typing me as an ISTP because I changed my online behavior. So, I mean, I think it matters, the fact that ENTP has been consistent. So I think it's something that is, you know, it's worth putting thought into for myself. So yeah, I've been thinking because of that, I've been thinking quite a lot about introversion and extroversion, and especially I've been thinking about it, you know, what I was like as a kid, and also what my sister was like as a kid, because the way I remember my sister, she came across as very introverted when she was a kid, whereas the way I remember myself as a kid, pretty extroverted. And nowadays, like, I type her as an ESFP right now, and I think she's a pretty clear ESFP. And like, yeah, it's such a 180 we've done from my memory, and also talking to my parents, it's 180 from, you know, what they say as well. So the way I remember my sister, she would be in her room a lot, and she would be, you know, drawing and puzzling and whatnot, whereas I would be out playing sports, or, you know, I had more friends than she did when we were kids as well, so I would play more with friends. And I was just I was more physically active, you know, more the kind of stuff that you associate with an extrovert. And I also, I remember watching a clip of Jordan Peterson where he was talking about introversion and extroversion in the Big Five. And one thing he mentioned was that you find this pattern with very young kids, that even at a very young age, you'll notice that if you bring a kid to a playground, there are kids that will sort of just stand by their parents' legs. Like they're not going to be willing to engage with the other kids immediately. They're sort of cautious. And then there are kids that, you know, as soon as they get there, they immediately run to the other kids. Like they're immediately interested in what's going on there. And that would be the extroverted kids. And according to my parents, I was the extroverted kid, and my sister was the introverted kid who would sort of, she was more passive about engaging, whereas I was pretty immediate in engaging. So I think that that sort of lines up with extroversion, and the sort of consistent patterns throughout my life that I would associate with introversion, especially as a kid, that are, you know, still consistent today. Those are things about, like, I'd say, like, that I'm narrative driven. So whenever I played sports as a kid, I always imagined like that I was playing a character. So like I was playing an imaginary match, and I was always a character, you know, a made-up character. It wasn't usually actual people. I wasn't the kind of kid who played, you know, Ronaldo or whatever. I was the kind of kid who played the Brazilian Ronaldo, not the Portuguese shithead. But yeah, I wasn't that kind of a kid. I made my own imaginary football players, and I played my own imaginary games. And I was like that with everything, not just sports. You know, I liked playing with action figures. And whenever I played with action figures or Lego or whatnot, I never built anything. My dad tried to get me to build stuff, but I wasn't interested. Instead, I had like everything in my head, and they were just sort of physical representations from which, you know, I don't know, help navigate somehow, but it was all inside my head. So I never liked building stuff. It was always just, I've always liked telling myself stories and telling other people stories and creating stories, and I've always been extremely narrative driven. And it was also obvious in, like, I was very paranoid as a kid. Like, my neighbor was a witch. We went somewhere when I was I think it was like 3 or something, and I was so convinced that we went to a hostel or something, and I was so convinced that the host was a witch that I wouldn't eat anything as long as we were there. I didn't say anything. I just refused to eat. I wouldn't eat. And as soon as we got in the car and we left from there, I was like, how could you guys eat the sandwiches or whatever it was that she brought? She was a witch. And I was so relieved that we survived, and you know, that we the witch didn't kill us, but I was convinced that she was a witch. And a lot of stuff like that. Like, there was a place in one of the buildings in the yard that it was sort of like, it was a bunch of I think it was maybe, I don't remember what it was, but it was a bunch of stuff stacked up. So it looked kind of like a staircase, and on the top of it there was I think it was a window frame. So it sort of looked like a staircase up to a door-ish. And to me that represented the king's door, and the king's door was like the door from which the king of another world would enter and conquer our world, sort of. I don't know, like 6 or something when I had this stuff going on. So it was a lot of that, and like I could play outside for hours, and then suddenly I'd get the idea of like a snake or a bear or a lion or something, and then I'd get super scared, and I had to run inside because I got completely paranoid. So yeah, I've always had a really wild imagination, but obviously that works just fine with any, right? It's not really introversion. That's you could think of that more as an extroverted intuition as well. So yeah, I think a lot of the sort of things that have made me introverted throughout the years could work as extroverted intuition, kind of. So yeah, that's something I've been thinking about. But then the problem I see with it is that I don't really find myself thinking anything alike introverted intuitives. I don't really, yeah, I'm not sure. Like, the main thing I would say about myself is that I'm just really detached. I don't um I don't focus on things normally. I just sort of am without paying much attention. Like, it's just passive, you know, like I'm just along for the ride in some way. And yeah, I don't pay a lot of attention. I don't have a good attention span, but it's not the kind of attention span where, you know, it shifts. Like I have a problem like that. It's more like I just space out and I'm not really paying attention to anything. Sort of my default, I would say. Like, I'm just extremely detached in that way. And yeah, so I'm not sure. Like, I'm really torn on the introversion extroversion thing, because like nowadays, or in the last, let's say, ever since I was maybe 13, like from that point on, I've been so clearly introverted in every way. Like, I'm a total social recluse. Nice pronunciation there, by the way. And yeah, I don't seek out a lot of stimuli. I can spend weeks not doing really anything. Like, I don't really know where the time went even. Like, I'm pretty apathetic, but not in the way that I don't care. It's just time just goes by, and I'm not really sure what I've been doing. Sort of like I've obviously been thinking about stuff, but it's like it all just flows together, and I've not really been paying attention to what I've been thinking about. So yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I don't really associate with any of the extroverted intuition descriptions you'll find, but it sort of works when you think about it, like what I was like as a kid, right? So it's a little bit hard to place there. But yeah, I don't think I really need to be touching on a lot more here. The video is just going to get really long and boring. So I think you've seen enough to sort of get a read on my body language and my thought process, you know, kind of sort of how I think and act. One thing that I will mention, though, that is worth mentioning is that I'm obviously sort of boxed in here. So I can't really... yeah, my body language is pretty limited. I would probably move around a lot more normally, but I don't really have the option because I have this goddamn microphone here, and then there's a bookshelf, and yeah, I can't move around too much. So that's sort of worth adding that that has affected me. But, you know, I guess how you adapt to it is a part of your personality as well. So whatever. Anyhow, laters.